Are you frequently in a state of fatigue? It might surprise you to learn that your cellular health begins to decline as early as 25 years of age. As you get older, your cell membranes start to become like Swiss cheese. The cellular damage is the primary cause of biological aging and could be the root of your fatigue. But there's a breakthrough supplement that's scientifically proven to repair and renew your body's cells. NT-factor lipids. NT-factor lipids are identical to the phospholipids found in your cellular membranes. NT-factor is the only solution proven and published in medical journals to repair those dead spots in the membranes. I've been using NT-factor for years. I don't go a day without it. NT-factor lipids comes in an easy-to-use powder in 2 convenient sizes. For more information and to order, just call 800-982-9158, 800-982-9158, or go to ntfactor.com. That's ntfactor.com for NT-factor lipids powder. Welcome to today's Intelligent Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ronald Hoffman. It's your weekly opportunity to send questions to questions@drhoffman.net. And we, and I do mean we, yours truly, along with the capable assistance of our resident nutritionist, Leyla Muden, we will endeavor to answer your questions. And indeed, I need some help today, Leyla, because I'm pretty jet-lagged. I arrived from New Zealand. Yeah, I was in New Zealand for the past couple of weeks on a bicycle trip. And I'm a little jet-lagged. I feel a little kind of lightheaded, disoriented. I caught the sniffles on the plane, as so often happens. So I have a little, maybe a little more basso profundo to my voice. So I'm going to need a lot of your help. Yeah. I'm cognitively impaired. There's a 17-hour difference between the time in New Zealand and the time here. So, as we record this, it's 3:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. And actually in New Zealand, it is about 9:30 in the morning. Or is it 8:30 in the morning? 17-hour difference, but it's tomorrow. It's tomorrow. Yeah, across the international date line. So kind of weird. I got on a plane at 7:25 in New Zealand on Monday. And I arrived in New York at 6:25 on Monday, the same day. I arrived an hour earlier after spending 16 hours on a plane, nonstop. Because the first leg is you go all the way across the Pacific. Yeah. And only the last few hours you go, the flight's almost over. You're flying over California. It's like, oh boy,
We're flying over American airspace, yay.
Finally, yeah. Back in the USSA. Back in the USSR.
Right.
So anyway, so I'm a little bit jet lagged. And I actually did a full recitation of my vacation, partially on social media. There's a lot of pictures. So if you follow me on Facebook, please do. Dr. Ronald Hoffman. And you'll see great pictures from New Zealand and, of our bike trip. I brought my GoPro so you could see me zooming down these single track pathways under tropical forested canopies.
Wow.
It's a very interesting terrain in the South Island. It's actually the place of, the Ring series, Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, yes.
Yeah, that was filmed in the South Island. That's, the scenery is so otherworldly that it makes for an interesting backdrop. And in the space of just a few miles, you can go from a beach to mountains, and you can ski. But the interesting part is when it's summer here, it's the middle of winter there. So this is springtime here, and the trees were changing color for fall.
Wow.
It was fall in New Zealand. And you could actually take a glacier walk, which I did. I took a helicopter to the surface of a glacier. They let us get out and walk around on the glacier. I took some pictures there. And
Wow.
so, went kayaking, went hiking, saw, very unusual animals because New Zealand is kind of weird because just like Australia, it was isolated from the mainland, and they have very unusual animal species there. So that was quite
Did the weather hold up for you? Did the weather hold up? It
was amazing because the average rainfall in the South Island, many of the places we went to, is anywhere from 5 to 10 feet per year. So its climate is kind of like the inner passage of, Vancouver, up by that part of the world, Alaska. Yeah. And it is considered a rainforest, a temperate rainforest, not a tropical rainforest, because it's in the temperate latitudes. But the plants were otherworldly. There's like amazing giganto ferns and huge trees, hundreds of years old, that were very interesting. So here's the interesting little, just a little medical aside, is that on the way out there, flying from New York to Auckland, which was 18-hour flight, I was sitting next to an Australian gentleman, very garrulous gentleman, and, we hit it off right away. We were having a conversation. And I kind of joked with him. I said, I kind of hate these flights because there's so many people on this plane that what are the chances that somebody's going to have some kind of medical emergency? It's happened to me so many times before. And it even happened to me on a Viking cruise once on a riverboat. And it's like, is there a doctor on the, on board, And so I was kind of joking with him. And, then I settled in for a nap. And not a half an hour after I said that to him, directly across the aisle from me, there was this commotion. People were gathered around, and I said, "Oh, here we go." I knew, my number's up. And I tapped them on the shoulder, and I said, "Okay, I'm a physician. What's going on?" And they said, "The gentleman here has just passed out. He's fainted." And by the time I got to him, he was kind of coming out of it. And so it, required a medical assessment because, there are innumerable reasons for people to pass out. The most benign being, what's called a vasovagal episode, which is basically, elevate your feet, put cold compress on a person's forehead, maybe give them some orange juice, and they'll come out of it. But it could be anything. It could be a heart attack. It could be a stroke. It could be, it could be a seizure, So, I did the assessment, I started talking to the guy. The guy said he was feeling better. We gave him some orange juice, put a little oxygen mask on him. I did his assessment, checked his pulse. His pulse was regular. His neurological exam was normal. And because I was sitting right across the aisle from him, I kept asking, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you?" So lo and behold, like the flight attendant comes to me and says, "Well, thank you, Dr. Hoffman, for intervening here. And as a reward for your medical services, you now have 50,000 points on Qantas, for 50,000 miles, which unfortunately is an Australian. I don't really want to go for like I'm kind of tapped out of these long plane flights, but anyway, I think there's some interchangeability because they're part of a network of airlines.
Okay.
So
50,000 points. That's great. Oh, that's nice of them.
That was nice of them. And, and it was actually one of the easier medical interventions because, all's well that ends well. The guy just had a little episode. I'm not sure why. Okay. Of course, I asked his wife, does he have any medical history? On any meds? Went through that whole kind of thing. But, I think, maybe you shouldn't ever travel on a plane with me on board because your likelihood of having a medical episode goes up exponentially just by the mere fact that I'm on the same plane with you.
But Dr. Hoffman, you also mentioned it to your passenger. It's like being on the LIE and saying, "Wow, no traffic," and suddenly everything's supposed to happen.
Yeah, I jinxed it. I jinxed it. Yeah, I jinxed it. There's no question.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, so all's well that ends well, right?
Yeah, it was a great trip. I went with a buddy of mine who I actually used to play at his house when I was in the 4th grade. I got to know him in grammar school. And so here we are, both in our 70s and, experienced a lot of decades of life. And we had just a lot of great conversations and reminiscing. And,
Terrific.
both of us are adventurers and, we try to stay physically fit and, it's great. It's all good.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Terrific trip. Oh my goodness. Wow. And any communication with our friends over at Caliker?
So the crazy thing was, I'm going to New Zealand, and then I realized, I have a sponsor that's based in Auckland, New Zealand. So I told them that I was going to New Zealand. They said, great, we'll give you a tour of our facility. And I was very impressed. They have a research facility there. And I spoke to their lead scientist who I've interviewed on this program, and I'd never met him in person. His name is Dr. Ed Walker, and I will be speaking to him in the future. They have a new study about Caliker. If you don't know, Caliker is a natural GLP-1 activator. Yeah. So it works, a kind of milder version of these powerful drugs, where the use case is maybe you don't want to be in a drug, or maybe you're coming off a drug and you want something that's going to help you avoid the rebound weight gain. Yeah. And it is, according to, they do very rigorous studies there. I was very impressed with the, sophistication of their research facility. And they took a control group and they took a GLP-1, a Calikerb group. They gave them Calikerb. Yeah. And over a period of, I don't know how many weeks, 8, 12 weeks, the Calikerb lost 5% of their body weight and the control group didn't lose any weight. So this single-digit weight loss compared to the double-digit weight loss that you can get with these drugs, but at the price of side effects,
Yes. Ozempic phase, loss of muscle mass, sarcopenia, other issues.
So right. There's a place for the drugs, I think, but I think that I personally, and you know me, I really am not a big fan of these weight loss supplements. Most of them have been either give you the jitters, they're have a speedy effect with a lot of caffeine or a lot of mahuang, which is a stimulating herb, or they bloat you, they fill you up with fiber so that you feel bloated. Yeah. But this is one where I think the science is very robust. And so I'll be talking more about that in the future, and folks you'll be hearing about Caliker. But anyway, it's fun and then they took us out to dinner, beautiful restaurant, and it was really very hospitable down there in New Zealand. That's
great. Oh my goodness. Sounds like a lovely trip. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You get more miles out of it too, which is good.
Right. So before we get to questions, and I think our mailbox is pretty full because we've had a hiatus of a couple of weeks. Let us allow one of our sponsors an opportunity to share an important message with you. So here goes. Listen up.
Now, more than ever, it is important to have a healthy immune system. Many health professionals agree that probiotics are a leading natural therapy for boosting immune health. Why? Because 70% of your body's immune cells reside in the GI tract. By taking a superior probiotic daily, like Dr. Ohhira's probiotics, you can enhance your overall immune system and immune response. The key to Dr. Ohhira's success is the 500-plus postbiotic metabolites that are in each capsule. Postbiotic metabolites are important to the regulation of most systems in our body. For a short-term immune boost, try Dr. Ohhira's Propolis Plus. Merging nature and science, Dr. Ohhira's Propolis Plus combines Brazilian green propolis, vitamin E, astaxanthin, and tocotrienols for additional and powerful immune support. Be proactive about your immune health. Ask your retailer today about Dr. Ohhira's probiotics and Dr. Ohhira's Propolis Plus today. Also available online.
Thanks for listening, and thanks for supporting our sponsors. They are what make intelligent medicine a continuing resource for you. Plus, I get to visit people in great places. Oh, we have another sponsor, Timeline, and they're in Lausanne, Switzerland, which is a place you know a little bit about because you have a sister over there, right?
Yeah, in Geneva. She's recently moved to France since she got married to Beto, but it's about half hour away from there. So, Well,
I may have to do a fact-finding tour to Lausanne, to because it was so much fun visiting
Uh-huh.
Kellicurb in Auckland, New Zealand. So could make a whole itinerary visiting our sponsor.
Yeah.
Okay. So good stuff. So what do we have in the mailbox? Let's in our inbox.
We've got an email here from Michael who's wondering, Dr. Hoffman, do you prefer whey protein isolate or whey protein concentrate?
Okay, so there is a slight distinction.
Yeah.
Whey protein isolate isolates the protein.
Mm-hmm.
So the accompanying things you get in whey, which include, since whey is a protein derived from milk products.
Yes.
You may get some additional lactose in the concentrate and a little bit of fat in the concentrate.
Mm-hmm.
And in the isolate, they isolate the protein.
The amino acids.
Right. Another version of it is like hydrolyzed whey, which is, it actually breaks down to the amino acid components. But I don't see any great advantage of that because I think whey is pretty well assimilated. And I take it. I believe.
It's a great source of branched chain amino acids.
Oh, yeah.
Leucine, isoleucine.
Sure. As well as building blocks for glutathione, too.
Yes.
So, because as we age, we're susceptible to sarcopenia and maybe we don't eat enough protein.
And the nice thing about whey, it is the least allergenic protein in dairy.
Yeah.
Whereas casein may be a problem. Whey, almost nil.
Well, I've said this before, but I'll reiterate is, the way to remember that is Little Miss Muffet, Saturn or Tuffet, eating her curds and whey. Now, curds is casein. Now, curds is with cottage cheese. It's the casein. Yes. And the whey is actually, you find in buttermilk. Okay. And that is lactalbumin, which is the less allergenic component of dairy products.
Yeah.
And generally well tolerated. I know that I get congestion when I eat too much dairy. So, for example, instead of yogurt, I'll have coconut yogurt as an alternative. And I try not to eat a lot of dairy products. I'll tolerate small amounts. But if I just have too much, I'll get congested.
Yeah. And you know what? Dairy causes phlegm and mucus.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily due to allergy. It just causes phlegm and mucus.
It does.
And some people are just more susceptible than others. Yeah. So anybody suffering with any kind of chronic congestion or sinusitis or congestion that always winds up turning into a sinus infection, they're having to take antibiotics. I'm always telling them, just swear off the dairy already. Just stop. But I'm only eating cheese. Yes, that's still dairy.
Yeah, that was
I understand it's
That was advice that I gave to one of our fellow adventurers because I noticed he was sounding kind of nasal. He's blowing his nose. And I said, you have a cold? He says, no, I have terrible allergies. And I said, well, maybe go easy on the dairy. Yeah. But also consider clear nasal spray, XLEAR. And I gave him a heads up on that. So
Terrific. So, Michael, there you go. All right. So if you want the other stuff besides the pure amino acids, which would be isolate, if you don't mind a little lactose and other things going on with the concentrate, the calories, the fat.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't think it's a big distinction.
Yeah.
And the amount of lactose in there is probably relatively trivial. And, lactose intolerance is not like peanut allergy. It's not like, oh my God, you get a tiny amount is going to set off a whole. If you get a massive amount of lactose, you can have symptoms. But a little bit of lactose, even in people who are lactose intolerant, is somewhat handled.
Right. For example, people who are lactose intolerant, they can't tolerate a glass of milk, a dish of ice cream. However, if they eat a little hard cheese or maybe even some yogurt, all that lactose is actually gobbled up by the probiotics. They're able to tolerate it better because so much of the lactose has been gobbled up already. So, all right. We have a question here from Carol. Hi, Dr. Hoffman. At the urging of my cardiologist and listening to you about it, I underwent a coronary calcium score test. Lo and behold, I'm in my mid-70s. it was over 500.
Mm-hmm.
So my doctor...
I have to admit, that's a relatively high score, although it's not determinate of, that you're poised on the brink of a heart attack. It just says that you have some atherosclerosis. It doesn't tell you...
Yeah.
It's a quantitative score that doesn't tell you where it's located. Because actually, I had this conversation with, again, somebody on this tour. They said, I have a 70% blockage. No, 70% blockage. I said, yeah. She said, I had one of these scans and my score was 70. Well, I said, no, that's all the calcium that it could be all in one place where maybe there's a potential for a blockage, or it could be scattered through all your coronary arteries and the flow is good. So, 500, doesn't guarantee you have a blockage. I mean, if somebody under my care had a 500, I'd send them for some testing to assess the flow, like a stress test and or a coronary angiogram, CT angiogram, which will show, if there's any obstruction. So anyway, so this is a good candidate for a statin. Some people are inalterably opposed to statins. Statins are bad for you, but I think under certain circumstances, you might want to get some protection. So keep going.
So what happened? Carol's doctor then prescribed rosuvastatin, which is Crestor. 5 milligrams every day.
Which is the lowest dose.
Yes. And even on that low dose, her ALT started to go up. Her liver function test, her liver enzymes started to go up. So even this tiny amount of Crestor was impacting her liver. So the doctor then suggested to take the 5 milligrams every other day rather than every day, and also add milk thistle.
Okay. So,
and what say you? Yeah.
Okay, so look, every other day is a strategy. You'll get some degree of protection. We'll have to see what it's doing to your cholesterol and your LDL and your ApoB, which are important.
Well, her LDL on the 5 milligram every day went from 125 to 57.
Oh, but her
liver enzymes went up.
She's very sensitive. She's a very very strong responder to the medication. Some people have to take much higher doses to achieve those results. Okay. And then, of course, she got into the range of toxicity because she's so sensitive. Okay, so the milk thistle advice is interesting coming from a cardiologist. It means that the cardiologist is a little bit into natural medicine. But a little knowledge is sometimes a dangerous thing. And what milk thistle will do is it actually probably accentuates the metabolism of the statin so that its effect is weakened, actually. So it might help to reduce the problem with the liver, but I don't know that it's necessarily, it may actually counteract the beneficial effects of the statin.
Yeah. Carol also takes NAC and acetylcysteine, along with other things like good stuff, fish oil, aged garlic extract, magnesium.
As we know, it's not a one-note Charlie, lower your cholesterol. It's also protect your arteries, reduce inflammation, address your homocysteine, address your weight, address your insulin. If LPA is a problem, there are new drugs coming down the pike that will fix your LPA. So
that's interesting. So she's wondering how low should she try to keep her LDL, because her total cholesterol now is 183 with an HDL of 94 and triglycerides at 70. She's on no other prescription medication. She's otherwise healthy.
Well, for people who have atherosclerosis these days, the goal is LDL below 70. So she's hit that target.
Yeah. Okay. So Carol, there you go. Keeping it below 70. And especially if there's a family history, right?
Right. So, and by the way, this is not the death knell, is that, when you're 70, one can expect, perhaps 25 years of additional longevity, optimistically. And, this is actually a relatively short time to go to a score of 1,200 or 1,500 or 1,800, where very likely that you could have a cardiac event. But, people can have cardiac events with scores that are in the double digits, less likely. So so
I like that her HDL is a 94, which is wonderful. And her triglycerides are are not just below 100, they're below 80. They're 70,
Yeah.
which is terrific. So she's eating the right way, I could tell.
So it kind of all goes to show that one might not expect such a high score in a person with those numbers, but there's some ineffable things that maybe we haven't yet discovered that put people at risk for atherosclerosis, even if they're doing all the right things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Carol, thank you for this very thoughtful question. Let us know how you're doing. Looks very astute of her doctor. I love that her doctor really started low and slow.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing.
Right?
That's a good thing.
With the least problematic statin, which I
put
think
her on
is
like
Crestor.
20. He could just slam her on 20 and then throw her for a loop. They're much more likely she would be experiencing adverse symptoms in addition to messing up her liver.
Yeah. Okay. And let's see, we've got a question from Danny. Dr. Hoffman, if any supplement in your protocols is out of stock at Postscript, should we substitute with a similar supplement listed at Postscript?
The answer is yes, and to some extent you run your own recognizance there because you can, say for example your favorite brand of N-acetylcysteine is not available. Just can use the search feature to find other brands with comparable dosages. And I have to say I've been a little remiss because when certain things are discontinued, people can prompt me and ask me for a substitution. And, there's a long queue of people who've asked me for a substitution. And I have to say, I've been a little remiss. I got to go back and clean that up. As soon as I get rid of this jet lag, I think I may circle back. I'm
Get a good night's sleep tonight. Get back into
I'm
this time zone.
I'm just unpacking, and I don't know what time zone I'm in.
You don't know. Not only that, or what day, which is really something, right?
Yeah, that's very disorienting.
Yeah.
But let me tell you what I'm doing though. Let me tell you what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So first of all, for combating jet lag, going there, what I tried to do, although I was tired because don't sleep that well on these long flights. Fortunately, we arrived in the morning, and I said to my friend, I said, let's just really try to power through the day. We'll get some light, in the morning, and we'll do some activities. And you kind of walked around a little bit like zombies the first day. And we actually did some things. And then we went to bed early, dead tired, but it kind of put us in the same zone.
Yeah.
We had, the things that set your timer are your exercise. And for me, it's usually exercise in the morning, your exposure to sunlight, your meal timing, and of course your exposure to darkness, and then also melatonin levels. So I made sure that I had melatonin with like a melatonin CBD gummy, which helped me go to sleep. And then I also, for what I just learned, higher doses of creatine can help with jet lag. But the doses are pretty high. They're like, 15 to 30 grams. And, that's a lot of creatine powder. So I took creatine capsules of creatine hydrochloride, which are more concentrated. And then I've also heard something about how phosphatidylcholine can help with the cognitive problems. Nice. So if I'm making any sense whatsoever, I think it's because of those measures. I feel, like kind of cotton in my head, that feeling. But,
discombobulated.
I'm rolling with it. I also try to go to bed at a reasonable time coming back.
Sure.
And then wake up at a reasonable time. And as tired as I am, I'm trying to push through the day and not take a nap and have a normal bedtime.
Yes. That's important. Okay. All right. So here's pushing through that and getting you back into a normal circadian rhythm. Okay.
Oh, I heard one other thing. Thing. And this is, I haven't tried it and I can't vouch for it. I don't know if there's any studies on it, but somebody told me that their son has a way of overcoming jet lag. And what is that? He fasts. Now, for me, it's very hard to do because when I travel and I'm with sleep deprivation, you get hungrier, right?
Yes, you do.
I find that
cravings for carbs in particular.
And especially, I'm in the airport, there's all these places, and you have to wait for the plane and I'm enticed. And it's also kind of like you get the feeling like, you better eat now because you won't know when your next chance is to eat. So you got to like grab it. But what is thought is that going into ketosis with fasting actually has a beneficial effect on brain function and recovery from jet lag. Now, I don't know if I have the wherewithal to try that because, then they feed you on the plane. So you would and they, on some of these, like Air New Zealand, pretty good grub. Pretty good
Really?
grub. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Not some kind of flatbread pizza.
With knives and forks? Like pre 9/11,
What? Oh, nice. Oh my gosh.
Like silverware.
So that's something. Yeah. I could see how that could be difficult because Dr. Hoffman, you went on a bicycling trip. You don't necessarily want to be in the fasted state and then go on a long bike ride.
Right. Well,
that could really push you over.
So luckily we had a few days to acclimate before we jumped on our bikes. So we actually had a few days in Auckland before we transferred to the South Island where we met our tour guides, and then we got our bikes. So actually I was 3 days into it when I started bike riding because getting off a plane, then jumping on a bike on a narrow trail.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That would absolutely. All right.
But I took some pretty cool videos though with a GoPro of me bombing down these. They look like forest trails. They are forest trails.
Terrific, and they could check that out on your Facebook page, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. Terrific. Okay. We've got a question here from Marianne.
Yeah, give us a preview of that because we are going to divide our podcast into two parts. So in part two, what's coming up?
Marianne's asking, I'm interested in your expertise on peptides. I'm thinking of taking some that were recommended, like thymosin alpha-1, BPC, and others. What are your views?
Okay. We'll handle that issue of peptides when we return. I'm Dr. Ronald Hoffman. The destination for questions is questions@drhoffman.net. And I am pleased that we've got a mailbox chock full of questions. That means that you are engaged and are using this as a resource for addressing your health concerns. So we'll be back with more questions on our weekly Q&A with Leyla. This is the Intelligent Medicine Podcast.